Hello everyone, welcome to the Now What podcast. This is episode 9. My name is Glenn Sharp. I am the president and CEO of Sharp Leadership Development. This is kind of a special podcast because I've been getting a ton of requests for presentation skills, public speaking. It's happening all over the place, be it annual summits or symposiums. But I've got individuals who are saying to me, what do I do? So I thought this would be a good topic for episode 9. And in this episode, we're going to go over the 6 key tips to presentation skills. So there's so much to public speaking, there's so much to presenting. Obviously, we can't go through all of it, but I'm going to give you some highlights and things that I think will really help you for your upcoming presentations. This is something that I certainly went over with Johnny, and if you're new to the podcast and you haven't seen any of the other episodes, this podcast is really centered around my book, Now What? And basically the book is a coaching journey of Johnny. Johnny is a brand new manager, and he was an amazing mechanic in the airline industry, and because he was so good at being a mechanic, they made him a manager of mechanics. Now what? He doesn't have the skills to be a manager. He has to learn that. He's not turning wrenches anymore. Now he's doing things that managers do, from performance appraisals to coaching. And then one of the things that we go over in the book is presentation skills. Johnny does not know how, or is he comfortable with speaking in public. So this is some of the things that I go over with him as well. So if you haven't already, go ahead and pick up the book. I think it'll be unbelievably helpful to you, but also helpful to some of your colleagues or even aspiring managers who are in your charge, to give them a heads up on what it's going to be like and get them trained on their journey toward being a manager. So let's get into the presentation skills. One of the first skills I want to talk to you guys about is really the elephant in the room, and that is nervousness. I read a article one time, and in the article it cited Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld does a stand-up, and basically the stand-up is, it talks about a study where they talk about the number 1 fear in the United States is public speaking. Number 2 is death. And Jerry Seinfeld says, let me get this straight. You'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. And sometimes when I present that to my folks in my workshops, they're like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I get it. I get nervousness. But I always talk about butterflies. And the concept that I want to start with is organizing your butterflies. It's okay to be nervous. Everyone is nervous. Even someone like me, I literally have trained 20,000 people in my career. I find nervousness a good thing. I don't want a situation where I go to a presentation, I don't have butterflies. But do you understand the butterflies? And that's what organizing your butterflies is all about. It's understanding that nervousness comes with the territory. But there's a technique that I teach people in regards to how to overcome that. If you think about it, in your presentations, it's really the first 5 minutes that's a culprit. The first few minutes is the one that gets everybody all anxious, and really the nervousness comes in. So I teach people, why not start early? And what do I mean by that? Well, imagine if you go to a presentation and if you know some people, or even if you don't know some people, strike up a conversation with several of them. Talk to them, especially if you know the audience. Mess with them a little bit, have some fun. Right? Even incorporate your boss in there, whatever. It's so much easier to talk to people, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, well, let's go ahead and get started, guys. And then next thing you know, all that nervousness, all that 5 minutes of just anxiety doesn't even happen because you are just doing the things that you normally do, having conversations with people. It works, and it works well. I do this to this day because it works so well. So think about that pre-speech rapport, right, to really make sure that you get those butterflies under control and organizing your butterflies. I also talk about preparation as well. One of the things that's interesting is how people literally are not prepared, don't think about some of the questions that'll be asked, don't know what slides are coming up. Preparation, practice you see on the screen is unbelievably important. The second step is in my book as well. It comes from the Sun Tzu Art of War. Every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought. So making sure, for example, you go over ground rules in the beginning, making sure audiences understand expectations and exactly what their level of accountability is. right? Making sure these guys understand, right, there is behavior change that's expected, or they'll have a homework assignment, or there'll be a follow-up to the meeting. You know, describe it to them in the beginning, cover the material, and then recap at the end, right? Most of the work is done up front, right? Especially if there are consequences, especially if there are expectations attached to your presentation. The other thing I want you to think about, and this is step 3, and that is do not worry about being perfect. Right? People ask me all the time, like, I can't do what you do. I say to them, don't do what I do. I have a different attitude. I have a different demeanor. I have a different way of doing things. Don't try to be me. I say, just like I don't try to be you. I don't try to be someone like Zig Ziglar, you know, or some other really famous presenter out there. That would not be, you know, genuine at all, and I would look terrible up there. I would look like I am very inauthentic. Be yourself. I want you to think about this. The best presentations I've ever seen are the ones that aren't perfect. And that's interesting. Like, for example, I tell my classes all the time, if I ever got judged or scored by a group like Toastmasters, right, I probably wouldn't do so well. The reason why is from time to time I curse in the classroom. From time to time I will call people out who are kind of belligerent, right? Or things like that. I do things a little bit different, but I do it based on my demeanor, whatever is effective. Obviously, it has to be in the correct context. Obviously, you have to understand your audience. But don't be perfect. Nobody enjoys a perfect presentation, right? A little bit of messiness, a little bit of realness, and that's the biggest compliment I can get, to be honest with you. When I have a presentation at the end, someone comes up to me and says, wow, that wasn't corporate at all. That was good. That was real. Like, that's a compliment, right? That means I affected them. That means they're going to remember. I was relatable to them. And that's relatable. And messiness and being a little nervous even, or even making fun of yourself and things like that, that is something that's attractive to audiences. And that's part of my point in step 3 is the best presentations I've ever seen, they really do make sure they have the audience in mind, right? And audiences want it to be relatable, and that's unbelievably important. Step 4 is be organized and in charge of your meeting. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Be it a meeting or presentation, you called the meeting, you're presenting, you are the alpha in the meeting. That means going over ground rules in the beginning. For example, making sure people know, hey, listen, I expect you to speak up. Making sure, like, for example, put your phones away. Or if you're even in an online, a Zoom call or Teams meeting, turn your camera on. You are the alpha in that meeting, and you make sure whether or not the meeting is going to go well. One of the things that I do all the time is I let people know you are expected to be organized in terms of an agenda. In fact, if you work for me, if you send me a meeting invite and there's no agenda attached, it's an automatic decline. And my charge to you, my answer to you is, hey, listen, I've told you about this. I told you this is something that has to be attached. But I literally look at them and I say, get your act together, right? Here's the concept. You have 10 people in that meeting, or you have 100 people in some sort of an event, or 50 people. If you are not organized and you don't have an agenda and you don't stick to the agenda, that's disrespectful to the attendees, right? The same thing for making sure that you are in charge of that meeting, right? For example, we're only going through these 3 items on the agenda, and that is it, right? Anything else we take offline. If you have a question and it has something to do with something outside the agenda items, let's talk about it after, or get with me before. But while we're here, we're going to be respectful to the people that actually are involved in the participants, right? And I love to make sure, for example, that I tell people, this is a good trick of the trade. Hey, at the end of the meeting, just want to let you know, especially if it's a smaller meeting, that this is doable. I'll be like, in the beginning of the meeting, I'll let them know, I'm going to recap not only the concepts at the end, but we're going to go around the table and we're all going to go over roles and responsibilities. So please pay attention. Talk about it, an absolutely unbelievable way to get maximum participation and attention, and that is if they know that you're going to go around the table during the course of the meeting at the end, they will pay attention in the beginning and during the meeting. But that takes someone who is in charge, Number 5 is something that a lot of people don't realize how effective it is, and that is the use of pictures. This comes from the book Brain Rules by John Medina. When I read this book, I literally changed everything when I was with Speedway and oversaw the training department there. So let me give you an example, because so many people, they'll put all the information on their PowerPoint presentation. And I have news for you, and I know this is a little provocative, but nobody reads that stuff. They just don't, right? But people will remember pictures. They will remember concepts, especially if you can relate it to them. So if you notice on the screen, I have a particular picture, and this is in the book as well, in the book Now What, and you'll notice this is the final lines from the famous poem. I don't want you to think I'm a poet, right? Or I read a lot of poems. I read a few. But in this particular poem by Robert Frost, he talks about 2 roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that's made all the difference. If you notice the picture, right? It's a very simple quote. Notice the picture. On the left-hand side, you've got a well-traveled path, okay, even has tire marks on it. And then on the right-hand side, you'll notice it's pretty remotely traveled. It's hardly traveled at all, but it also goes into a thicket and the unknown. And I tell people in my classes, especially managers, listen, do not follow the status quo. Do not follow what everyone else is doing. Every successful person that I know has taken a chance. It's been an educated risk, but they've taken a chance. If you're willing to absorb some bumps and bruises along the way, right? If you're willing to take a chance, it's incredible how the path to success is actually a lot shorter than going all the way around and following everybody. And the path to success typically is on the right-hand side, when you break away from what everyone else is doing and be your own person and actually think for yourself. Now, that's a lot of information that I just gave you, but imagine presenting just the picture and just the couple of lines from Mr. Frost's poem. Imagine how much they will remember from that, right? Because that is something that's pretty cool, but also there is an emotional element to it. A picture says 1,000 words. You've heard that before. And I think it's fascinating how many people put so much information on a PowerPoint presentation and people don't read it. People certainly don't remember it. The question to ask is, who is the presentation for? Is it for you or is it for your audience? Because the audience will remember pictures. Let's take another picture. The concept of pain points. This is a sales concept, right? Here's a problem that a customer has, and here's a product or service that can help you with that problem. Pain points. And I remember I had an individual at one of the companies I worked for, literally, they were looking at the sales training deck I created for them, and they say, hey, listen, love the sales training, it looks awesome, but there's one slide that I'm uncomfortable with, can you remove that slide? And it just so happens to be this one that you're looking at. And I look it up on my computer and I go, what's going on? What's wrong with that slide? And they go, I just don't like needles, it makes me very uncomfortable. And I said, okay. What's the concept though? Oh, it's pain points. I get it. It's what's wrong with the client? What do they need? And then what's the product or service that we can offer that satisfies that need? And I'm like, oh, that's what they said to me. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, it made you remember. I get it. It made you remember though. And that's incredible how, that's a lot of information to regurgitate to me, but you remember simply from a picture. So if you want to get maximum involvement, if you want to get individuals to really retain information, use pictures, especially using pictures that are relevant. I had someone one time, if you guys remember this, back in the day, Blackberries came out, right? Everybody was excited. And I remember the IT department asked me, hey, can you look at my presentation, see whether or not it's good, any pointers, things like that. And when I looked at it, it was all gray background with white fonts. And I literally said to them, this is horrible. This is terrible. It's going to be 350 people in the room. They are going to be bored out of their mind. I go, why don't you put a picture of the actual phone, of the actual BlackBerry in there? And then show them the functionality, show them what it does. You did a market research, right? You went ahead and rolled this out in the Cleveland market. Why don't you interview some of the individuals from some of the stores in the districts in that market and show people how much people love it? And of course, they kind of took my advice, and this is the lesson behind the story. I'm sitting there in the audience come summit time, and they did take my advice for the first like 15, 16 slides. Gray background, white font. And you could see people in the audience just bored to tears, looking at each other, looking down, whatever. But then all of a sudden, the picture of the phone came up. And I don't know if you've ever seen 350 people sit up all at the same time, but it's really cool, right? And that's the point. As soon as you made it relevant to them, as soon as you showed them what they're getting, they paid attention. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice to you guys when it comes to presentation is the use of pictures. The final tip that I want to present to you guys is context. And if you notice, I repeat it 3 times. Context, context, context. I call it so what, right? Why is this relevant? Making sure that you have for instances in your slides or in your presentation. Speak to what they can see and feel every single day. Especially what I like to do in presentations is before I get up there and speak, I will do my due diligence. I will actually ride along with certain people. I might interview certain people so that I have some friends in the audience, but also I can give them for instances, connecting the concepts, connecting what you're trying to present to them to what they actually see and touch every day so that you make it come alive. I think most people get bored in meetings. Most people don't take training seriously because they don't know how it relates to their life. They don't know how it relates to work. And if you can do that for them, that's going to serve you well. It's also going to make for a fantastic presentation. So try some of these tips, guys. I think you will find them fascinating, and they're so simple. I get it, but there's nothing wrong with being simple. And especially your presentations, make sure that your presentations are simple as well. I hope this helps you guys. Obviously, there's a lot to presenting and public speaking. You'll see this again in future podcasts. We'll definitely explore this topic more, but at least this is something to think about in the upcoming summit and symposium season. So again, I hope you enjoyed the presentation here. I wish you all the best of luck for you leaders and managers out there. In episode 10, we're going to be exploring a lot more coaching concepts and kind of recapping, kind of a capstone of all the different episodes that I already put out there to kind of show you how they all come together, similar to what I just mentioned to you. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in episode 10.